Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are setting up an absolute heavyweight battle between the two top personal finance strategies out there. Look, if you want to actually build wealth, get out of debt, and, keep the money you make, you need a system. To help us visualize this clash of financial titans, we've got our animated stickman friend stepping into the ring. In one corner, we have the insanely popular 50-30-20 rule, and in the other, the notoriously disciplined zero-based budgeting. Which one is going to take the title for your wallet? Let's find out. But first, let's talk about why you're even looking into this. Picture this scenario for a second. You're staring at an empty wallet. Our stickman literally has a giant question mark floating over his head. Does that feel a little too familiar? In our digital world, managing money really should be easier, but honestly, it usually feels like the exact opposite. Bills hit your inbox, those sneaky automatic subscriptions quietly drain your accounts, and before you know it, you're sitting there wondering, where on earth did my paycheck actually go? It is so incredibly easy to lose track and overspend without even realizing it. And hey, if you feel like you're failing at this whole money thing, you are definitely not alone. Get this. A recent U.S. bank report found a staggering statistic. 84% of Americans who have a budget still end up overspending. Think about that for a second. Just writing down a budget isn't enough to magically fix your finances. If 84% of people are breaking their own rules, it's not some personal failure. It means they're using the wrong system for their specific lifestyle. You don't just need a budget, you need the right budgeting weapon. Okay, let's dive right into this. Introducing our first contender, the 50-30-20 rule. Now, this method was actually popularized back in 2005 by Senator Elizabeth Warren and her daughter Amelia Warren Tyagi in their book All Your Worth. Their whole goal was pretty simple. Take the massive, overwhelming headache out of money management for everyday people. It's essentially a percentage-based framework designed to give you really clear boundaries without forcing you to obsessively track every single penny. The way it works is you balance your income into 3 distinct buckets, basically slicing your money into a very specific pie. Exactly 50% goes to your needs. These are your absolute non-negotiables, like housing, groceries, and minimum debt payments. Then 30% goes to your wants. This is the fun stuff, dining out, hobbies, entertainment. And finally, 20% is totally locked in for savings and debt repayment. This is for building that emergency fund or aggressively attacking high-interest loans. It creates this really nice built-in equilibrium. So how do you actually implement it? First, and listen closely because this is where a lot of people mess up, you have to calculate your after-tax income. Please do not use your gross salary. We are strictly talking about your net take-home pay, the money that actually lands in your bank account after taxes, health insurance, and 401k deductions. Once you've got that number, you divide it into the 50, 30, and 20 buckets, and then you just broadly track your spending to make sure you aren't overflowing any of those categories. Let's put some real numbers to this. Let's say your monthly take-home pay is exactly $4,000. Under this rule, you draw a hard line in the sand. $2,000 is the absolute maximum you can spend on your living expenses and needs. You get a pretty generous $1,200 for your wants, which keeps life actually enjoyable. But crucially, $800 is instantly assigned to securing your future through savings and debt reduction. It's clean, it's super simple, and it completely takes the guesswork out of planning your month. Now, we do have to acknowledge a pretty harsh reality here. That 50% cap on needs kind of assumes a level of affordability that, well, simply doesn't exist everywhere right now. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 49.7% of U.S. renters are what they call cost-burdened. That means they spend over 30% of their income on housing alone. If you live in a really high-cost city, keeping all your needs under 50% might literally be impossible. In that case, financial planners actually suggest tweaking the rule to a 60-20-20 split. So you shift some money away from wants to cover essentials, but, and this is key, you still protect that 20% savings goal. All right, let's bring out contender number 2, zero-based budgeting, or ZBB. If the 50-30-20 rule is like painting with a broad brush, ZBB is a microscope. It is for the financial stickman who wants to hunt down every last dollar with a magnifying glass. This method is incredibly strict. It's granular, and it demands total intentionality. It's built for the person who wants absolute, uncompromising control over their cash flow. And this brilliantly illustrates the core philosophy of zero-based budgeting. Income minus expenses equals zero. Now, let's be incredibly clear about this. Zero does not mean you end the month flat broke with an empty bank account. Not at all. It means that before the month even begins, every single dollar of your income is assigned a specific job. You are intentionally allocating those funds, even if that job is moving $500 into a high-yield savings account or $100 into a vacation fund. Absolutely no money is left to just blindly float in your checking account. Let's see what this looks like in action with a $3,500 monthly income. With zero-based budgeting, every single category gets a precise dollar amount. So we've got $1,600 for housing, $800 for groceries, $800 directed right at debt and savings, and $300 for fun. But the most important line is right there at the bottom. Unassigned equals zero. By accounting for every dollar up front, you completely eliminate that loose, unallocated cash that usually triggers impulse spending and lifestyle creep. You're the boss, and you are literally giving every dollar its marching orders. You might be thinking, why go through all of this effort? Well, because ZBB provides absolute intentionality. It brutally curbs wasteful spending leakage, simply because you literally can't buy something if you haven't assigned dollars to it beforehand. It is historically the fastest way to accelerate debt payoff goals. But, and this is a massive but, it requires a really high administrative effort. You have to actively track your transactions. If you are someone who hates spreadsheets or logging into a budgeting app every couple of days, you run a huge risk of getting behavioral fatigue with this method. So we've seen the mechanics behind both. Now it's time for the ultimate head-to-head matchup. Which of these strategies is actually going to solve your specific financial dilemma? Because honestly, it's not about which method is objectively better. It's entirely about which operating system aligns with your personality, your goals, and your current financial reality. When you put them side by side, it basically comes down to this. The 50-30-20 rule offers the superpower of simplicity and flexibility. It is low maintenance and gives you really broad guardrails to play within. Zero-based budgeting, on the other hand, hands you the superpower of intentionality and control. It demands meticulous tracking, giving you absolutely zero room for accidental spending. Now, here is a massive factor you absolutely have to consider. In our current economic landscape, the average credit card interest rate is hovering near a brutal 22.5%. If you're carrying credit card debt right now, that interest is literally eating your future wealth alive. In a scenario like that, the strictness of zero-based budgeting might be exactly the weapon you need. You need that absolute control to redirect every possible spare dollar to aggressively attack that 22.5% debt rather than casually letting 30% of your income slip away toward wants. So the crucial point here is knowing your own user profile. Generally speaking, the 50-30-20 rule is an amazing match for beginners to personal finance, super busy professionals who just do not have the time to track every receipt, and stable earners who are already in a pretty good place financially. Zero-based budgeting, however, is the ultimate tool for aggressive debt payers who desperately need to escape high-interest loans, or tactical hypersavers who want to optimize every single dollar to hit early retirement. But hey, what if you don't fit perfectly into just one of those boxes? There's actually a secret third option, the hybrid approach. You can totally combine the best of both worlds. You use the 50-30-20 rule as your big picture architectural guide to make sure your lifestyle stays balanced overall. But then you use zero-based budgeting specifically within that 50% needs bucket to meticulously assign dollars to your bills and guarantee nothing slips through the cracks. It's essentially solid structure layered with total flexibility. All right, it's time to move from theory to practice. Whichever financial weapon you choose, you have to deploy it correctly. The single biggest mistake people make is treating a budget like a bad New Year's resolution. They go incredibly hard for 2 weeks, get burned out, and completely abandon it. To make this actually stick, you need a universal set of steps to execute your strategy starting today. Let's move to how this builds into an actionable plan. First, you've got to track 90 days of your past expenses. Deal with your real, verified numbers, not just estimates of what you think you spend. Second, ruthlessly separate your true needs from your wants. Third, lock in your chosen method. Are you going 50-30-20 or zero-based? Fourth, and this is without a doubt the most critical step, set up automated transfers. If you don't automate that 20% savings so it leaves your checking account the second you get paid, I promise you, you will spend it. Finally, schedule a quick weekly review to adjust things as life happens. At the end of the day, I really want you to remember this. Budgeting isn't about restriction. It's about freedom. That is the ultimate takeaway from all our sources in this explainer. Too many people view budgets like a restrictive diet that just punishes them. But in reality, telling your money exactly where to go completely reduces your daily stress. It eliminates the anxiety of unexpected bills, and it builds long-term, multi-decade security. A budget is simply giving yourself permission to spend your money without any guilt because you already know your future is fully funded. So we've reached the final showdown and the choice is entirely in your hands. Are you going to embrace the balanced, easy simplicity of the 50-30-20 rule? Or are you ready to command every single dollar with the surgical precision of zero-based budgeting? Which financial weapon will you choose today to finally take total control of your financial future? Analyze your cash flow, pick your method, and go start building your wealth. Thank you so much for joining us on this explainer, and we will see you next time.